Hey, what's up, everybody? Let's talk about why negative items keep coming back onto your credit reports. There's a whole lot of reasons as to why. There could be literally hundreds of reasons as to why negative items will pop back into your credit reports. But for this specific video, I want to talk about three main reasons as to why you're getting those negative items kicking back and coming back onto your credit reports. And what are some of the obvious things that you can do to prevent that? In addition to that, understand the logic behind why they have the ability to come back, specifically given the fact that you just cleaned up your credit or perhaps are going through a process that you're about to clean up your credit and you've got questions that are unanswered. So for that specific reason, I want to discuss that with you today. So I think we want to start with the reason number one, which is a lot of negative items that are being removed from your credit, especially the ones that are recent, are the ones that have a high probability of coming back. See, the reason as to why accounts have the ability to come back is because the creditor behind the scenes needs to keep an up-to-date, compliant copies of track record of customers, specifically a given database, if ever audited, right? So for that reason, they have to make sure that these records are maintained, and then the transactional history is also provided. And at times, they may have to do batch processing of that data and report it to the credit bureaus on a regular basis. That's what happens. So when you have these type of negative items that are just recent, which is a couple of months, so the average here is usually it's between 3, 6, 9, or even 12 months, there's a high probability that this accounts will come back. That could be a negative item such as a charge-off, a late payment, an account that's, closed. And we're going to talk about open accounts on the reason number 3, but closed accounts specifically, the susceptibility of that is, and the probability of those accounts coming back is very high. Because like I said, it's just way too recent, and there's a whole lot of reasons as to, why they have to, report on a regular basis. So if you got through the process where you basically cleaned up your credit and all you see is negative items pop back, and you're questioning, well, why is this happening to me, right? Specifically given the fact that I've done everything I can to challenge those negative items. Well, the biggest reason is because of that transactional history and the record keeping, and for them to continuously update on a regular basis. That's one of the biggest reasons why you're seeing that negative pop back up. The second biggest reason, and this one is more specific and geared towards collection agencies, right? When you look at collection agencies, a lot of people on YouTube, internet, forums out there, and even open discussions in Facebook groups are saying, hey, just to completely ignore the debt collector, they'll go away. And the fact is, and this is very something that we have to stomach, and it's not the most pleasant, but the fact is, if you were to completely ignore the debt collector, what happens is if they fail to communicate with you or get your attention, what they can simply do is just take that debt and transfer it to another debt buyer and or collection agency. Now what happens is now you already have a bad record. You have that one collection agency that's just becoming a nuisance in your credit report. It's the derogatory mark you want to be, trying to get rid of, but they're just like a fly, that's constantly bugging you. Now imagine you have 2 flies and the other one pops up and you go back to your initial advice of ignoring them. And a couple of months later, you get a 3rd fly and it starts to just become an infestation of flies and just pests all around the area, and your credit report looks terrible. So my advice to you, right? Instead of just thinking about just not communicating with debt collectors or just ignoring them in 100% in completion, I believe if you strongly understand the principles of challenging it the right way and you just go ahead and talk to them, and if not talk to them, at least clearly indicate to them that you intend to get communications in writing 100% of the time. When you do that, you have some sort of layer of protection that prevents any type of, misunderstanding from happening over the phone. But at the same time, what happens is now you can clearly articulate your message and explain to them that you need clear evident documentation, evidence of compliant reporting, accounting, existence of debt, quick claim language, and so on and so forth. There's a whole lot of videos on this channel, and you guys know that. I've been talking about debt collectors for a while, but that's one of the biggest reasons why they will come back. Now, let's assume you challenge them and you dispute them. For some reason, you dispute them using some sort of template. They go off your credit reports. Then you see a brand new collection agency pop up, and you're like, Ali, I just disputed that. The thing is, you can't just simply dispute. You have to give a strong enough reason and tackle the specific alleged debt very strongly and to a choke point where they have no choice but to surrender that value. They surrender the collection activity in its totality and clearly indicate that they will cease collection activity, which in turn, any other following or precedent type of collection agencies or debt buyers cannot collect on that. So that is how you have to go ahead and challenge debt collectors. And that's one of the biggest reasons why they pop back up into your credit reports, because the generic dispute may have done the job for a couple of weeks or months, but thereafter there is no guarantee or protection from ever coming back, and therefore they can come back and become more of a pest and more of an annoying situation for yourself in order to get rid of it further. And you might have thought, okay, I'll just go ahead and use that template again. But at that point, there is a possibility that they might even ignore that. So you have to be very specific in reference to how you go about challenging that. So that's the second thing I wanted to go ahead and discuss with you guys. The third important thing here, and I think this one's going to be critical, is open accounts, right? The reason why open accounts, even though you've taken them and updated them, let's say, to the late payments have been updated and all sorts of stuff, what happens also is because they're active and they're currently continuously batch processing and continuously uploading thousands of customer profiles on a regular basis, there's a high probability that the track record that you have, that 24-month payment grid, that's actually going to be relisted with the exact late payments that you had during that 24-month period. Let's assume that you had a late payment 24 months ago. Next month, at least it's going to be all green because you're shifting the payment dates forward. But assuming it's within that 24-month timeline and you got a couple of lates there and you were successful disputing it, again, the word dispute here, on removing those late payments, and then they come back, and update the entire profile, and all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of lates that show up again prior to the situation here after your dispute, and you're wondering to yourself what's going on and why is this happening? Well, that's what I say. It's batch processing. It's a regular type of prototype that they have to protocol that they have to continuously follow. They have a systemized way of doing this, so you have to literally challenge the way it is reported. You cannot dispute, right? You cannot just simply fall back on templates without understanding the core fundamentals of how communication has to be, processed with the credit bureaus on the creditor side. If you don't understand who's reporting and what procedures are required to stay compliant, accurate, and of course timely, then it's going to be very difficult for you to even challenge that. Just simply disputing it can get results temporarily, but I promise you they won't last if you're not very thorough with what you're asking for. You have to be very specific when it comes to dealing with the bureaus and your creditors as well. So that is the reason why a lot of negative items will come back onto the report. There's a whole lot of reasons outside of that as well, but the biggest ones are these. So once again, I want to recap this so you guys have a complete understanding of the situation. Number one is because those negative items are too recent, right? If these charge-offs are too recent, there's a high probability that they'll be updated again because the creditor has thousands of files similar and they're batch processing that, and you are part of that batch, and therefore it's going to be a preliminary update across all three if they report to all three, and that is definitely going to affect you. Specifically given the fact that you are not very thorough in reference to what you're asking for, and it was just a generic dispute, right? So to prevent that, the solution is don't have a generic dispute and be very specific in your request as to why they should have adjusted that and or removed or modified that item, right? So that's the first reason. Number two, don't ignore the communication with debt collectors. Again, be very specific on the debt validation process. Ask them for the documentation that you need and be very thorough when asking so you can prevent a catastrophic disaster of a credit report, specifically given that they can go ahead and just keep reselling that debt, and it becomes a vicious cycle of negative activity that you're always trying to get rid of and are getting annoyed with, right? So that's the second reason. Don't ignore, just communicate and be very thorough, okay? Number three, if you have active and open accounts and they're very recent, or even if not recent, but they're open, there's always an ongoing transactional cycle that's happening with the credit bureaus. There's regular updates that are happening, especially given the fact that there's transactions being recorded on their behalf and your behalf. So you have to be very specific, again, not dispute, but very specific as to what needs to be modified and for what reason they have to be modified. So those are the three core reasons that you want to be looking at if you're thinking to yourself and asking yourself why negative items keep popping back onto your credit reports. Those are the three main reasons. Now, there's hundreds, like I said, of other reasons, and I'm pretty sure you can figure that out. But most importantly, follow the advice that I give you guys because it will prevent those negative items from coming back. And if you've been unclear or you're left stranded or you always wondered why those negative came back even after you paid for a credit repair service, that is the reason. Now, is it that you have to blame the individual who took your file? No, it is an agreement between you and that agent or whoever it is that took your responsibility to help you. But I want you to understand that everybody has to be accountable for their actions, right? If debt is unpaid, it is something that you have to worry about. If the person is not fully transparent or they don't understand the game properly or they don't understand the procedures of understanding how credit reporting works and the specific ways of going ahead and using the proper strategies to get you help, that's also on them. So at the end of the day, it takes two hands to clap. It takes two hands to create a handshake. So you guys have to understand that whenever you engage in something, you have to be exactly realistic with the outcomes that you can expect and realistic with understanding the knowledge base from specifically this video or other videos on the channel, or perhaps other educational content that you're learning, because that's what's going to create the best outcomes for you. Okay. When you create realistic expectations and you know what to expect and the strategies and structures that you have control over, that's what's going to give you the best results. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to smash and destroy that thumbs up button for me. It'll help me get some distribution with the YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe, turn the notifications on to all. This way you can get all the new videos when I release them. In addition to that, I want to hear from you. Have you had experience with negative items coming back? If so, what exactly were they? And what were your thoughts when you initially saw them? Did you know about this message on this video prior to watching this? Were you already aware of that? Let me know. Let's have a discussion below this video. And if you're interested in leveling up your credit knowledge, like I said, you have the UPCM 2.0. It's going to be updated soon. So that's coming up very shortly. And with that said, this is definitely your guide and mentor. Definitely catch you guys on the next one. Bye for now.